All right. Well, I think we can kick off. People can join us if they're coming in a few minutes late. I appreciate everyone who's joining me tonight. I want to make sure, it is recording. So sometimes I forget that, and then you get done with a video and you're really upset about that. So this will be fun tonight. I appreciate you being here, and I'd love for you to participate. There's going to be a few exercises in here that, the whole intent of this is to help you name your future, really. I mean, it's really just deciding on what you want in the future and bringing it in the present so that you can do something about it. So some of you are probably wondering, is this right for me? So are you in the right place? This is the right place for you if you're tired of just making a living and you want to design a life. Finally, you're sick of the 9 to 5 and you want to actually have a lifestyle by design. And it's also right for you if you don't see improvements in your life or situation year over year. So if you're living this kind of day-to-day life, year-to-year life, and it really doesn't improve, you should have improvements year over year. You should be able to have set improvements. You should be able to say, build on your success from the year before. And this is also right for you if you're ready to finally decide that 2020 is going to be your year. So I heard this quote, it was several years ago now, when somebody was talking about goal setting. And they said, the best thing you can do is peek at the past, but focus on the future. So what does that mean? We want to acknowledge what we've built up to this point. So a lot of people are so focused on their goals, they don't celebrate the wins, and they don't acknowledge where they came from. They don't acknowledge all that they've built, and they're not, there's not a gratitude for that. So we want to be grateful for all that and peek at the past, but we do want to focus on the future. I'm going to just minimize this screen here. Okay. So a couple quick reminders before we dive in. So I had a chance to say hello to a few of you in the beginning. Really appreciate all of you that are joining me here, but I would just recommend, I sit on a lot of webinars, and it's very tempting to be on Facebook. It's tempting to get caught up on email, to text. I would highly recommend on this webinar especially, just be here for 90 minutes, and it's going to be interactive. There's going to be 3 different exercises that kind of build on each other, and it's really taking 90 minutes to make sure that your next year goes exactly as you want it to go. So, put pen to paper or fingers to keys, whichever one you're more comfortable with, and take part in these exercises. And then I gotta move these windows. They're they're in the way here. So your results are why I'm doing this. And this, I'm not selling anything at the end. I know there's a lot of webinars where it's like mediocre content to get you to buy something at the end. The only reason I'm doing this, I don't have to do this, I'm not getting paid to do this, is because I get really fired up about this topic of goal setting. And it's something I'm excited about. And I've learned some things over the last several years about effective goal setting that I want to share with others on this webinar. So I started living off rentals a year ago. And for those of you who are new and maybe we haven't met, or you're not familiar with living off rentals, it's a community basically. So a year ago, and at the beginning of 2020, I decided that, for my 10-year vision, I wanted to have a community that was kind of around this idea of building financial freedom through rental property investing, and help others to understand how to do that, help people with the tools to do that. And so I started Living Off Rentals, and now it's a podcast, it's a YouTube channel, and it's a Facebook group. So if you're not part of any of those, I'd encourage you to join. But it's all about this idea of financial freedom through rental property investing. And so, it kind of, all the content that I put out is based around that. So the question comes up, why goal setting tonight? Like, why are we talking about goal setting rather than just focusing in on financial freedom through rental property investing? And I think the best way to share this, or the best way to illustrate this, is to share a little bit more about my story. And also for those of you who I haven't met yet, who are on this, I think it'll be a great way to, help get to know each other. So here is my current life right now. This is a picture taken about a year ago, and I think it illustrates my life really well right now. It captures my two kids' personalities there. You've got my quiet, more reserved daughter in the background. She's like the most pleasant baby. And then you've got my son who's full of piss and vinegar, jumping up and down on the bed. And so this is my life. But 22 years ago, if I go back 22 years to 1998, I guess it's almost 23 years now, to 1998, I was a junior in high school. And my first big goal setting experience at that point was I wanted to go to West Point. I wanted to attend the United States Military Academy. And I remember back then going to my guidance counselor's office and sharing with him that I wanted to go to West Point. And I remember kind of him looking at my stuff, my grades and my record, and saying, let's talk about backup schools here. This half the 1,000 kids that get into West Point are either valedictorians or salutatorians, and you're not in any danger of getting anywhere close to that in the next year or so. So let's talk backup plan here. And luckily, I had great parents who encouraged me to continue the process, and I had a football coach who helped me out. And I pursued the process still of getting into West Point. So I had to go for a year to prep school, but there's me in basic training and cadet basic training. So I got in the back door to West Point. So I went to a year of prep school. I got my grades up there. I played football there. And then somehow, some way I snuck in the back door and they gave me a slot. So went to West Point 4 years later. It's me and my parents at graduation. So graduated from West Point. And I served 6 years as an officer in the Army, and it was just an awesome experience looking back on it. I had the chance to command soldiers overseas, and it was awesome. And then, throughout that whole time that I was in the military, I knew that I wanted to get out. I knew it wasn't going to be a career. I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. And at one point during my time in the military, I picked up Rich Dad Poor Dad. And I realized I really am passionate about entrepreneurship, but the route that I want to go with entrepreneurship is real estate investing. And so I bought a few properties while I was in the military. And then I got out in 2011, and in 2012 started my first company with a couple partners, and we built this team. And a lot of these people are still great friends today. And from 2012 to 2016, we grew this flipping company, and we flipped about 70 properties around the Chicagoland area. And then in 2015, I met my lovely wife here, Taryn, and we got married. And then the next year, in 2016, I had a huge shift in my professional life. And I decided that flipping, and it was really going through this whole goal setting process, is what made me realize that this flipping company that I was doing wasn't going to lead me to the place that I wanted to be in 10 years, to my vision of what my life should look like 10 years from now. I was on this sort of treadmill, and I got into real estate investing for financial freedom. And the only way I was going to achieve that is to totally adjust what I was doing. And so I left that company and I started Green Vet Homes, which is a company based on buying, renovating, and renting properties. And initially, it was renting to homeless veterans through this HUD-VASH program. So a homeless vet can get a voucher which pays for their housing, and then they can go rent the house of their choice. And so I would rehab houses specifically for these homeless veterans. And I did that for a few years. And that totally changed my life in terms of, working toward a purpose I was passionate about, and financially. Finally, I was building great assets in a portfolio, and financially it was night and day between the flipping company and the rental property company. And so that was kind of the impetus for getting so excited about rental properties and wanting to share this with others. And so then another pivot, a couple years later, my wife and I decided to move to Northwest Indiana from Chicago, where the HUD-VASH program doesn't work very well. and we got into short-term rentals. And so we started buying and renting short-term rentals. And so this is a few of the properties that we bought and rehabbed and are renting out now near us in the Northwest Indiana area. And so we've done that for the last year to 2 years. And then another big shift in our personal lives was we bought this farm. So just a few months ago, we decided to buy this farm, which this was through the whole goal setting process. We realized this wasn't like we woke up one day and said, let's go buy a farm. We went through this process and realized that our lifestyle currently doesn't align with the vision of what we want in our life. And so this was a year and a half ago, we decided we're going to sell our house. We're going to move. We had rehabbed this house on the beach, a few years back, and it's a beautiful house, but it doesn't, it's not great for kids, and it doesn't align with what we want. We wanted to have some more property where my wife could run her business. The kids could have more room. And so, again, another shift. And so this whole process, I share that, some of my background, just so you know who I am a little bit more, but also so you can see that I use this process. And in the beginning, I'm not speaking from a soapbox here. It's not like it was pretty, and I had the process that I'm going to share with you today all figured out from the beginning. It was clunky, it was ugly, but every time I did it, it led to more positive things. And I would make strides forward, and then I'd reevaluate. And I'd sit down at the end of the year or halfway through the year. You can do this at any time, but this is, it's always appropriate at the beginning of a fresh year. And you build on what you've already created. And so I'm going to walk you through some of the things that I've learned along the way and some of the key components. So let's dive into it, shall we? All right. So the 3 components to effective goals. So I've kind of pulled these things out as I've gone and set goals over the years and studied this heavily over the years and boiled it down to these 3 main things. If you can get these 3 things to line up, then you're going to have some really effective goals in 2021. So simplicity, clarity, and alignment. So let's start with simplicity. So John C. Maxwell, he is a leadership and success expert. The guy is just brilliant. I think he's written like 1,000 books at this point. I can't keep track. But he says that I cannot overstate enough the unimportance of almost everything. So almost everything, he's saying, is unimportant, except for a few things. Now he's acknowledging there's a few things that are important. So the goal is to sort through all of the unimportant and figure out what are the things that are going to move the needle. Right? Derek Sivers, he's another guy. He wrote Anything You Want, and he started the business CD Baby back in the late 90s, early 2000s, and made just millions of dollars from it. But it's a great book, Anything You Want. But he says, if the problem was a lack of information, everyone would be billionaires with washboard abs. Right? So the problem, what does that mean? Like, have you ever Googled how to get washboard abs? Try it sometime. You'll get like 1 million responses. And if there's 1 million responses, there's 1 million people who are willing to tell you exactly how to get washboard abs. Why is it that there's so few people with washboard abs? So it's not a lack of information. I can give you the secret to washboard abs. My brother, he's 2 years older than me. He's 41 years old. I think he's got the most defined abs I've ever seen. The guy's a beast. And it's really simple, and you can evaluate, did you do this morning? If one of your goals is washboard abs, it's super simple. You wake up early in the morning, you strap on your workout clothes, you go work out. You drink a bunch of water throughout the day, and then you eat sparingly. And when you do eat, you eat something that was made in Mother Nature. It wasn't made by Kellogg or Kraft and put in a bag and, made out of chemicals. And you do that this time next year, I promise you're going to have washboard abs. And most people will say, well, that's way too simple. I want to buy the latest ab machine. I want to pay money for something else. And that's all there is to it. It's the simple things. Everyone wants more information, but more information, obviously, since we're not all billionaires with washboard abs, more information is not the answer. So as a result, we live in a country where pretty much everyone has access to information. They have access to the million results of how to get washboard abs, but yet we've got the highest obesity rate in the entire world. So I can't give a talk ever or a webinar without talking about this book. This is the book is called Essentialism, and I read this book for the first time like 6 or 7 years ago, and I've read it every year since, pretty much. I just finished reading it again this year, but it's an awesome book. Greg McKeown wrote it, and the whole book is all about the pursuit of less but better, and it goes to those first 2 quotes that I just put up, and it's not about having more. It's about identifying through all the unimportant things what are the needle movers. So this is the first exercise that we're going to do, and each of the 3 points, each of the 3 components of effective goal setting are going to have an exercise built in. And so for the first 2, for simplicity, and for I'm drawing a blank on the second one. So for the first 2, though, the exercise is going to be the foundation that's going to build for your annual goals that we're going to lay out. So if I was to walk up to you on the street and I asked you who you are, have you ever thought about how you would answer if someone asked you that question? I heard someone talk about this a while back, and they said, of course, everyone answers the first thing with what they do. They say, well, I do sales at XYZ company, or I'm a marketer, or whatever their occupation is. But is that who you are? So then you say, okay, I get that, but who are you? And they might say, okay, well, I like hunting, or I'm into running, or whatever their hobby is. Okay, it's more of what you do. And they might say, okay, well, I'm a father. And so, you're getting closer with these answers, but who are you? And so it seems like such a simple question to answer, but it's difficult in a lot of cases. I think probably 99% of people can't really tell you who they are. And so during this exercise, I'm gonna pause for about 5 to 10 minutes here, and let you write this out for yourself. But there's some questions that I've got here to help you answer this. So what do you believe in? When someone asks you who you are, it's based on your beliefs. What do you believe in? What do you stand for? There's that country song, you got to stand for something or you fall for anything. Have you ever identified what it is that you stand for? Who do you most admire? What are the traits of those people that you admire? Why do you admire them? What makes you angry? And what do you want to change? So, what do you want to change in this world? That makes up who you are. And then what's most important in life, and who is most important in life. So these are questions that can kind of prime your thinking. There's probably a ton of other questions that you can get into as well. But I think it's important. This is the prerequisite for the next 2, but you really have to identify who you are. You have to know yourself. I think, was it Aristotle that said, knowing thyself is the root of all wisdom, I believe was the quote. So it starts with knowing yourself. You can't set effective goals if you don't even know who you are, or what you believe in, or what you want. So I think I'm gonna pause it here, or I'm gonna actually play some music. I've got some Brain music. I just found this Brain FM. I don't know if anyone else listens to that, but it's a great site that plays like background music to help you think. So let me end the show here, or stop the share, and I'll go back to the Brain FM, and I'm just going to pause it for 5 minutes. So write this down, type it out. Just knowing this stuff isn't going to help you. You really have to. You've got to actually take part and put pen to paper, or put your fingers to the keyboard. So I'm just going to play music and pause it for about 5 minutes here, so you can write some stuff down, and then I'll be back. All right. So I know 5 minutes isn't a lot of time to figure out your entire life, but hopefully you got some things, and this is going to evolve. And so what I'd like to do, I'll share some of mine here, and then I'd like to ask somebody else if they're willing to share theirs as well. And maybe there's not, but here's an example of some of mine. So for me, what's really important is to always be improving in some area of my life. So I've noticed this is a theme, and I get a little antsy if I'm not improving, because I feel like you're either improving or you're dying, really, So I'm always trying to improve, whether it's financially, physically, mentally, and then helping others in everything I do. So I try to do things where it's a win-win for everyone. Supporting veterans are a big cause that I'm passionate about. Providing for and leading my family, living healthy, focused on gratitude. This is a newer one for me. I'm learning how important it is to acknowledge what you have and focus on being grateful for it. And then challenging my comfort zone. Doing more things that draw me outside of my comfort zone. So these are some of the things that make me who I am, things that I believe in, things I think are important. So is there anyone else? I think you can do the little hand raise thing and I'd see it, or you can type in the chat. But if somebody else wants to share some of theirs so that others can hear and maybe benefit from it, some examples. I won't put anyone on the spot. All right, no brave volunteers. I'm very disappointed. That's all right. We'll press on, but those are some examples of mine, and so hopefully that can help you kind of prime it. And just by doing this, you're part of like you're part of the 1% that will actually do this. 99% of people won't ever sit down and put pen to paper and figure out who they are. Darren Hardy, this is another awesome book called The Compound Effect. He was the editor of Success Magazine, so he was around successful people all the time. Once he was done with that gig, he wrote a book called The Compound Effect, and it was like compiling the biggest lesson learned from all these successful people. And the premise is that it's these little things that you do over time that add up to success. Everyone thinks a successful person just does all these big successful things that made them really successful, and it's just the simple things. And he says in the book, if it's simple to do, it's also simple not to do. So, simple question, who are you? It's simple to just sit down and figure that out. But the vast majority of people won't ever take the time to do that. And it's difficult to do these other things unless you've done that. So it all really just boils down to intentionality, being intentional about what you do, who you spend time with, all the decisions that you make. And it's all about just making the best decisions possible. And hopefully that's what this webinar will help you with. And this is just a quick reminder that this is a journey. You don't need to have your whole life figured out right now. For me, it's like when I'm running, when I'm driving in the car, when I'm in the shower, that's when I think about this stuff, and I'll have ideas and other things will come to me. So this is just kind of priming the pump. All right, so the next component, clarity. This is the second component of really effective goal setting. So I just saw this quote recently, and it's that planning is just bringing the future into the present so that you can do something about it. So a lot of people don't even consider what's going to be in the future. But if you can consider it, you can see it, you can visualize it, then you can bring it into the present and you can actually do something about it. You can make it happen. So I'm a huge fan of the Olympics. Every time it's on, I watch most of the events, and I just think it's awesome. And so, the way the Olympics is set up, it's very similar every year. They have the events, and then after the events, they set up the podiums, and the medalists get up there and they hand out the medals. And then inevitably, right after that, the gold medalist gets down, and a news reporter walks up and puts a microphone in the gold medalist's face and says, "Hey, how did this happen?" And they say, how did you become a gold medalist? And the response that I've never heard, and maybe someone else has heard this, but I haven't, is, I was just living my life, and I was just kind of doing whatever felt good at the time, and just kind of, just living. And I just going day to day and figuring it out as I went. And all of a sudden I look up and I'm up here on the podium getting the gold medal. It's the craziest thing. I've never heard that response from any gold medalists. So instead, typically, if a gold medalist is, say, 25 years old, it started back 10 years prior when they were 15 years old. And they, were maybe had a little bit of talent in a sport, and they decided when they were 15 that 10 years in the future, not at the next Olympics or the one after that, 3 Olympics down the road, I have a shot and maybe I could compete at a gold medal. And they make a decision 10 years before that gets them to that place. And so by making that one decision 10 years prior, they decide on all the things, all the sacrifices they're going to have to make, all of the pain and agony that they're going to have to endure, and probably even more difficult, all the things they're going to have to give up, all the opportunity. They're going to have unbelievable opportunities come up as they're gaining more and more success, whether it's, financial opportunities, education, other athletic opportunities, business, or whatever. And they're going to have to forego all of those because they have this goal, this vision 10 years down the road of potentially, it's not guaranteed, but just to get the shot at potentially getting on the podium to get a gold medal. They're going to do all these things for the next 10 years. And those are all laid out as soon as they make that decision at 15 years old, that at 25, they want to be standing on that on that podium and getting a gold medal. There's a ancient Stoic. I love the Stoic philosophy. I read Ryan Holiday is a big Stoic guy that studies Stoicism. And there's a quote that says, "A great life is made up of great days." So it's kind of along the same lines. Like, nobody just is on their deathbed at the end of their life and they've done, mediocre things, or just, maybe some bad things along the way, and they haven't really been intentional about their life, and they're just all of a sudden like, oh, well, I had a great life. It doesn't just happen. It's a great life is made up of the great days leading up to it. So if your goal is to have a great life, what are the great days that you have to have that lead up to that great life? So this is the second exercise. Your life 10 years from now. So this isn't like general, and it's kind of difficult to do. It sounds a lot simpler than it actually is once you start putting pen to paper. But on this specific date, so this is December 29th. So on this specific date, December 29th, 2030, what is your life going to look like? What's the vision of what it's going to look like? And I've got a bunch of questions again that'll help kind of prime you if you'll answer these. But if you can get clarity on this, because this is the second component of clarity, it's going to help you so much with starting to put the goals for this year into place, and next year and the year after. But if you don't know where you're heading, you don't have a clear picture. If you just say, yeah, I want to be rich and I want to drive a nice car. Cool, that's fine. So what does rich mean? How much money exactly do you want to have in the bank? What exact model of car will you be driving in 10 years? How many rental properties will you have? How much cash flow will they produce, each rental property? How much equity is going to be in each property? So, here's some questions to help you. Where are you going to live? Decide where do you want to live? Do you want to live part of the year in a warm climate when it's cold, and then part in a cold climate when it's warmer? Who is your partner going to be? Are you going to be married? Are you going to be dating someone? Will you have kids? If you have kids now, this is difficult to do, but I've got a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old. So I have to picture my son is going to be 13. So I have to picture like what he's going to look like, how he's going to interact with me. And right now it's not planning. I'm not saying how it's going to happen. I'm just saying this is what it's going to look like. and I'm deciding this is this is how my relationship with my son is going to be. And it's amazing, I think, how the how part starts to fall in place once you start to put these components in place, once you start to visualize exactly what it's going to look like. So what's your body going to look like? What time will you wake up? What activities will you do throughout the day? How are you going to feel physically? What's your attitude going to be? If you're super stressed out now, maybe you want to 10 years down the road be living a very relaxed, stress-free life. So picture that, and then you can start to put the pieces in place to get to there. What will your business look like? Are you going to work from home or work from an office? What role will you fill? What will your accountabilities be in your business? Are you going to have a staff? So all these things, I think it's easy to generally think, I kind of like want this or that. But once you start to like paint a very, very clear picture and it's specific on a specific date, then you can start to really backwards plan. So I'm going to shut up now and I'm going to let you do this. I'm not going to ask for anyone to share this. I think this is personal. Don't share it with anyone. Don't share it with your, pessimistic friend who said, "Oh, you want that?" Like, say whatever you want, because that's the only way that it's ever going to happen, is if you clearly can picture it. So I'll give you another 5-10 minutes here and write this out. I would challenge you to really think through this and look at these questions and start to write out some of the answers. All right. It's hard, isn't it? Yeah, it's difficult to get specific, but this is, I shared my story at the beginning, and this is exactly how this exercise is how I knew when it was time to shift. This is how I made some of the biggest decisions in my life. When I knew my business wasn't heading in the right direction, we needed to shift, or when we wanted to move, or even when I met my wife, like I knew right from the start that she was the one I wanted to marry, because, I had envisioned her. I had envisioned what my spouse would look like in the future. So I knew right away that she was the one that I wanted to marry, once I got to know her, obviously. But it helps with so many life's decisions when you can figure out exactly what your vision is for the future. Tony Robbins famously said this, people usually overestimate what they can do in a year, and they vastly underestimate what they can accomplish in 5 to 10 years. It's tough to go. I struggle too, to go out 10 years because it seems like a lot of time. But if you really look back, to 2010 doesn't seem that far away compared to 2030. 2030 seems like an eternity away, but it's going to be here really, really quick. So the last component of this whole thing, the third component that makes goals really effective, and this is kind of what ties all of this together. So you've done the first 2 exercises, which are the prerequisites really to getting really good one-year goals. And this is where it comes together. So Brendon Burchard, he's probably one of the biggest thinkers on high performance. He just did this huge high performance study. He wrote a book about it. But he says self-confidence comes from a congruence between what we say and what we do. So you can fake it till you make it for a while, but you really have to be true to what we say we're going to do, whether it's to ourselves or to others. And that's where self-confidence comes from. So hopefully you downloaded this framework. This is a framework that I use to identify my annual goal. So if you haven't downloaded this, I just wanted to mention it now because we're gonna use it here in a few minutes. But you can go to livingoffrentals.com/goals, and there's some of the text at the bottom there is hyperlinked, and you can go there and download it. But it's this do, be, have framework, and I'll explain how it all works. But the idea behind this framework, it's really just backwards planning. I mean, that's really what what we're doing. We're figuring out who we are, then we're figuring out what our vision is for 10 years. Now we're going to come back to 1 year and we're going to start with what we want to have and then backwards plan from there. And most goals, most New Year's resolutions, they leave out 2/3 of these components. So maybe they're a have goal. They're really good at identifying the thing that that you want to have. Like, say you want to have a 6-pack abs, or you want to have a weight of 180 pounds, or you want to have 20 rental properties, or you want to have a good relationship with your kids. These are the outcomes. And so a lot of people say, that's what I want to have, or I want to do every day, I'm going to do an activity, but they don't have alignment between all three of these. And that's where the magic comes in, is really getting the alignment. That's what I've seen in terms of any goals that I've had success with. My wife and I went on our honeymoon back in 2016, at the beginning of 2016. So we got married at the end of 2015, went on our honeymoon in January down to Mexico, and we went through this format, this goal setting format, and we identified some pretty lofty goals. And it was kind of based on what our vision for our life was at that time. I don't think we specifically spelled out our 10-year vision at the time, but we decided what goals we wanted for the year. And by September of that year, pretty much all of them had come to fruition because we had alignment between them and we were on the same page working together. So let me just explain the components real quick. So the have column of this. So it's broken down. The first column is just 10 examples of categories in your life. So if there's other categories that you want to see improvement in, then I would recommend listing those as well. But these are like just 10 of the big categories that probably apply to most people, but you can add or take some away. So in the last column, because we're working backwards, it's the have column. So this is the outcome. This is the result, the tangible result that you're going to have at the end of the year. And so whatever that is, so think about, your who you are, what you wrote down in terms of who you are, which should be tied to your 10-year vision. That speaks to your 10-year vision because you're going to set your vision based on who you are. And so think about who you are, your 10-year vision, and then what you need to have at the end of this year to eventually get to that 10-year vision. So this is the outcomes. Then the B. This is the hardest component for most people to wrap their heads around. It was for me, and it still is a challenge. And it's just because this is linked to your identity, and most people don't understand where their identity came from. A lot of times it's ingrained in you early on. And if your whole life you've struggled with weight and you identify as somebody who's just obese, or somebody who was called the fat kid, and so that's what you identify as is I'm the fat kid, and that's, you've taken on that identity, and it's just you identifying yourself as that person. And so the good news is that it can shift. This is it can be instantaneous. The bad news is it can be hard as well, So it's just making a decision about your identity, your being, who you are. And so if you say that you want to have, say you're 300 pounds and you want to have a weight of 180 pounds, then it's going to be very difficult for you if your being, your identity, and you go around thinking that I'm just an obese person, I'm just the fat kid, I'm just, whatever anyone told me along the way, that's who I am. You need to take on the new identity. So what could the new identity be? It could be, now I'm the healthy guy. I'm the guy who is big into health food. I'm the marathon runner. You never run a marathon in your life, but you're taking on the identity. Today, you're taking on the being of being a marathon runner. And you can do that. No one can stop you. An example for me is like living off rentals. I wanted to form this community. I wanted to have a thriving community where I'm helping people get to financial freedom through rental property investing. So I have to take on the being of somebody who does things like this, an influencer, someone who does webinars, and nobody like certified me to do that. I didn't take a course. I didn't, go through a class and get a degree in this being. I just decided one day at the beginning of last year, this is who I'm going to be. And it's that simple. You can just make that decision. And so you have to align your being with the things that somebody who has that being would have. And then the last component is, if you want to have specific things and you've identified the being part of it, then what are the actions that somebody who wants to have those things as a result, what are the actions they need to take? What are the actions of somebody, if you want to own 20 rental properties and you want to be a real estate investor, so you want, the outcome is you want to have 20 rental properties. So you want to be a rental property investor. So maybe right now you've got a very scarcity mindset, or you're stuck in this like 9 to 5 mentality. You can take on the being of a rental property investor. Even though you've never invested in a rental property, you can just say, I'm going to be a rental property investor. So what is somebody who owns 20 properties? What do they do to own 20 rental properties? What does a real estate investor do? And so now it's identifying the actions that you're going to take this year. So I need to evaluate probably 5 rental properties a week, and I need to put in 1 offer a week. And, by doing that, setting those as the actions, now it all aligns. Now you have alignment there's harmony between what you're saying you want to have as outcomes. You can't say, I want to be, I want to have a great relationship with my kids, but then your actions are, I want to go to the bar every night and get smashed, and I never see my kids. And when I do, it's a fight between them. And, there's not alignment there between what you're saying you want to have and the things you're doing and who you're being. So hopefully that helps clarify this framework, because it's a pretty powerful framework. So I listed out just some really quick examples. Some of these might resonate with you, some of them might not, but these are just some of the categories that you can kind of look through as examples. And I want to spend a little bit more time on this section, because this is where you're plotting it out. I mean, every minute here is just like if you're a real estate investor, every dollar that you put into a great property in a prime location, it's fun to spend $1 on that property, because you're getting $3 to $4 back. So every piece of material you buy, every time you pay your contractor, it's great. I love spending that money because it's 3 to 4 times you get it in return. And it's the same thing with this. Every minute that you spend on this, you're getting exponential gains throughout your year, because you're clarifying exactly where you want to go. So I will, again, play the music for about 15 minutes here, 10, 15 minutes, and then we'll come back together. All right. What do you want to have, be, and do? So it's not easy. Like I said, this is a challenge, and it's also not sexy. What most people want, they want the thing that's going to be the shortcut, right? I mean, if you want to learn basketball, like say you've never played basketball before and you watch the NBA, you probably notice everybody dunking, and you're like, well, I want to learn basketball, so I'm just going to focus on how to dunk, because it seems like everyone who's really good, they know how to dunk. So you just focus on learning how to dunk, and you dunk over and over and over again. You get really good at dunking. Then you go out to play the game, go out to play a basketball game, and you realize you are a terrible basketball player. You don't know how to pass the ball. You don't know how to shoot other than dunking. You don't know the strategy behind the game. Those are all the fundamentals That's what this is the fundamentals. Those are the fundamentals that aren't sexy. They're not flashy. Everyone wants the newest ab machine because the 3-step process to get abs, wake up in the morning and work out, drink water, and then drink or eat sparingly. Those things don't sound cool. Those are the fundamentals that it's just too simple, right? And so this is what all those quotes that I mentioned are talking about. If it's simple to do, it's also simple not to do. And it's the compounding of all these little things that are going to add up to having the goal that you want at the end of the year. So if you did this, I think you're going to find yourself in a much better place at the end of the year. So what I'd recommend from here is to post this where you'll see it. So, for me, I keep it in a file that I access regularly. I did a whole video on how I organize my Google Drive folders so that I know exactly where everything is. And so this is in one that I access regularly, and I can see it and I can refer back to it. And then I set my quarterly goals based on this. So once you've established your 10-year, what it's going to look like for you, what your vision is, you can scale back to the 1-year goals, what you just did. And then on a quarterly basis, I would say, look up, take a breath, stop just being in it and work on it and set your quarterly goals based on it. So if you have a 1-year goal of having, 5 new properties, or let's say 4 new properties, then it's 1 a quarter. So every quarter you got to set a new goal of how you're going to get that 1 new property. John Wooden is a famous basketball coach, and he's got, he's just a great leader. He's got a ton of great quotes, but this one really resonated with me. When opportunity comes, it's too late to prepare. So what you're doing now is you're preparing so that when these great opportunities come up in the future, which they will, you'll be prepared. So I love doing stuff like this. I hope that you really got a lot out of this, and I hope that you're going to walk away with at least a start. Like I said, it's not going to be polished, and you're going to want to add to it, but you've got 2 days before the new year starts. So you've got plenty of time to figure this out. But even as the year goes on, you're going to probably want to evolve it and change it. I keep OneNote on my phone and on my computer, and I keep this in OneNote as well, so that other ideas that I have that kind of relate to this too, so that I can, anytime I'm working out or other times that I have thoughts, I just put it in OneNote, and then I can update. So I love doing stuff like this. I decided just a few days ago that I might as well schedule the next one, because there's another presentation that I did at a bunch of RIAs way back in the day when we could actually get together for real estate investor associations in person. And I gave a presentation at a couple different ones on this topic of financial freedom through rental cash flow. And I got some really great feedback, and some people said that it really helped them with their journey, with their investing. So I'm going to do that again, but it's going to be virtual. It's not going to be in person like everything else these days. And it's going to be on February 10th at 4:30 p.m. this time. So if you want to sign up for that, you can go to livingoffrentals.com/freedom. Again, it's free. There's no obligation, but if you're interested in goal setting, if you're interested in financial freedom through rental cash flow, which is what the majority of the content is on Living Off Rentals, then I think you're going to want to join me for that. So if you got something out of this, all I'd ask is that you share it with a friend and that you keep me posted on your results. I'm going to continue to post every week. I've got a new video out. I've got a new podcast episode where I interview some really smart real estate investors, and I'd invite you to check that stuff out and just share it with a friend if it's making a difference in your life. So let me just check the comments real quick to make sure that there's no questions. All right. Thanks. I appreciate it, guys. All right. So if there's no other questions, I appreciate you guys joining me tonight, and I hope to see you on the next one. See you guys.